I am inevitable.
There's only one thing more inevitable than Thanos. Watching Endgame so many times that you memorized all the key sequences, and you need to put on something else, anything, just to retain some shred of sanity, and you're sick to death of living off sad peanut butter sandwiches, so Black Widow's hits extra hard now. Somehow the scene is even sadder than the one on Vormir. But fear not. If you absolutely loved Endgame, we're here to tell you about a lot more movies, maybe even some you haven't seen, which share some common ground with the Feige Chronicles. But first, we've got to isolate the essential elements that made Avengers Endgame such a massive success. 1. 21 MCU films culminated in a showdown that ends the Endgame, a feat that's unmatched in cinema history, so goodbye. Thanks for watching. 2. The action of Endgame brings together characters from throughout the vast and exotic MCU.
Is that everyone?
What, you wanted more?
From originators like Tony Stark and Pepper Potts to relative newcomers like Mantis and Captain Marvel. Also, Howard the Duck is there. But it's the laid-back Seth Green Howard, not the terrifying, horny 1980s Howard. 3. Endgame concludes with one of the largest scale battle sequences in movie history, the movie equivalent of a comic book splash page, but with less of a danger that you're gonna spill your Mr. Pibb on it. 4. Much of the storyline of Avengers Endgame finds present-day versions of our characters traveling back to the past to recover Infinity Stones, sometimes barely avoiding contact with their past selves. You know, like in Back to the Future 2. Wait, do we remember to recommend Back to the Future 2? I don't think we did. Watch it! Bonus rec! And 5, both Tony Stark and Thor fit the trope of a former badass who's settled down and given up the hero life, only to have circumstances force them to pick up the mantle once more. So if those 5 elements of Endgame appealed to you, here are some non-MCU movies to check out before you go back to Iron Man and start the whole series over again from the top. First up, one sci-fi classic went 5 for 5, matching every single category we applied to Endgame. Of course, I'm talking about Star Trek Generations. This 1994 film was the 7th and final movie to feature the cast of the original Star Trek TV series, wrapping up a story that had been going since the mid-60s, when Chris Evans was still just a glimmer in the eye of 2 people who were presumably also very attractive. In fact, the film opens with the old-school heroes of the Enterprise coming out of retirement to attend the maiden voyage of a new one, thrusting them into an exciting new adventure. You want epic team-ups? The film unites the cast of Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation, even though they're set about a century apart. And how did they pull that off? A time travel. Okay, technically an energy ribbon in space that sends people to a dimension outside of time known as the Nexus, but come on, you want to nitpick me here? I'm trying to help you. And of course, like any good Star Trek film, Generations features some large-scale space battles. Plus, if you want to check out Generations with some context, now you have 6 more Star Trek movies and the original series to watch first. See? Helpful. Alright, let's take a look at our lone 4 for 5 matcher. Probably the Fast Chise's most heartfelt ode to the importance of family, which is saying something, Furious 7 is the only film where Vin Diesel wears a tank top for more than 2 hours that will also make you cry. It's the last film to feature the late great Paul Walker's rogue cop Brian O'Connor. Furious 7 gracefully caps off a major chunk of the Toretto saga and sends the character emotionally off into the horizon. Like all latter-day Fast and Furious entries, it opens with our heroes in retirement before being forced back into action, and it features epic automotive battles in the mountains of Azerbaijan, Abu Dhabi, and the streets of LA. It's also an epic team-up movie, bringing back most of the cast from previous entries to clash with new villain Jason Statham, who would of course inevitably turn heroic, sorta, and join the franchise for the Hobbs and Shaw spin-offs. Plus living legends Kurt Russell and Tony Jaa, and the most legendary Australian female white rapper of all time, Iggy Azalea. Remember Iggy Azalea? No? Well, we've got even more Iggy Azalea movies to recommend oh, wait, wrong script. Okay, here are movies that match 3 for 5 Endgame elements. In the 2018 anime Batman Ninja, the Cape Crusader along with cohorts Nightwing, Robin, and Red Hood are transported back to the Sengoku period of Japan alongside villains Joker, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Two-Face, the Penguin, and others. You know, like you do. It's certainly an epic team-up that leads to some large-scale battles, though in some of them, Batman looks a bit more like a samurai than a ninja. Just saying, movie title. Sergio Leone's classic 1966 spaghetti western The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly also treads some common ground with Endgame. Both films cap an ongoing story. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly concludes Leone's so-called Man with No Name trilogy starring Clint Eastwood. The series' 3rd film teams Eastwood with 2 other legends of the western genre, Eli Wallach and Lee Van Cleef, not to mention timeless film composer Ennio Morricone. In addition to a number of big ol' shootouts, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is also set during the American Civil War and concerns the search for some stolen Confederate gold, so in addition to all the shootouts and duels, there's always a larger battle happening just over the horizon. Sam Raimi's classic Army of Darkness also hits 3 Endgame categories. It's the final film in Raimi's Evil Dead series, though he and star Bruce Campbell would pick up the story again on TV in Ash vs. the Evil Dead. I hear it's good. The film is set in motion when hero Ash, a contemporary American, is sent back in time to the Dark Ages by the Necronomicon at the end of Evil Dead 2. And of course, there are several crazy medieval battles against evil skeleton armies, and you just know they don't fight fair. Which brings us to our final group, the 2-match movies. But hey, don't hold that against them. They are trying their best. Here we have the 2015 meta-slasher comedy The Final Girls, starring Taissa Farmiga as a young woman who's sucked into the 80s horror movie in which her actress mother, played by Malin Ackerman, once starred. Like Scream, Final Girls is both a successful horror film in its own right, plus a clever dissection of horror tropes. And it features a long-dormant Scream Queen hero returning to glory and a time travel element, so there. Next, the hugely underrated 1991 sequel, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, that really blew up and creatively expanded the cosmology from the first film. Of course, it's still Bill and Ted, so they can travel through time, not to mention space. It's also served as the final word on the Bill and Ted franchise for decades, until Face the Music opens later this year. Maybe? We hope? I guess you could also say that Bill and Ted haven't been doing much during the 2 years since the first movie, and were thus retired, but let's not push it, right? They don't have jobs. And our final 2 for 5 match, director Doug Liman's sci-fi action thrill ride, Edge of Tomorrow. It fits on this list because it's almost entirely set at a huge battle between humans and alien invaders, and features Tom Cruise as a soldier who's stuck in a time loop. Still can't decide? Well, if you want to watch something big and fun, it's hard to go wrong with Army of Darkness. Sam Raimi's going to direct the new Doctor Strange movie, so there's even your MCU connection right there.
Groovy.
But if you want your film choice to be guided by metrics, the film with the highest Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter score and the highest user score on Metacritic is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's a classic for a reason, kids.
Yeah, you're right.
While the film with the highest traffic on Fandom is Star Trek Generations. Think you'll actually check out any of our recommendations? Do we miss something that's entirely endgamey and you're embarrassed for us? Also, why do you think Thanos' sword needs to be so big? Let us know, and we'll see you next week.